Hello, everyone. My name is Wilian Gomez. Today, I want to talk to you about affordable housing crisis and housing stability in our communities and nationwide. According to the most recent record-breaking data, 43.5 million American households devote over 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. We are in the middle of a catastrophic nationwide housing crisis. You might think this only affects a small demographic, but this crisis impacts our overall economy, our community safety, and the physical health of our children. As a first-generation college student returning to school, I know exactly what it means to carefully manage a budget. Combining my perspective as a parent with my research into personal finance and real estate investment strategies, I have spent significant time studying the data and the effects these market trends have on individuals and families. The affordable housing crisis is devastating, and we must actively advocate for legislative zoning reforms to correct it. First, we will examine the scope of the problem. Then, we will address common misconceptions. And finally, I will outline specific actions we must take. The financial math for the average American is fundamentally broken. Right now, a record high of 43.5 million households are classified as cost burden, forced to make impossible sacrifices just to survive. This financial strain disproportionately impacts minority communities due to systemic inequalities, as detailed in a 2023 study published by the National Institutes of Health by Dr. Sims and colleagues. Black and Hispanic Americans face significantly higher risk of chronic diseases, substandard living conditions, and unfavorable medical outcomes like preterm delivery, directly linked to housing insecurity. The psychological fallout on our youth is equally devastating. Furthermore, as reported by the CDC in 2023, high school students dealing with housing instability face vastly higher rates of substance use and suicide ideation compared to the stably housed peers. Despite these undeniable facts, there's a heavy resistance to real solutions. Some argue this is strictly a lower class issue. However, the data refutes this. The crisis is rapidly swallowing the middle class, with 29% of middle class homeowners now forced to devote over 30% of their income strictly to housing. Others claim this is only an issue in massive coastal cities. This is also false. The crisis is hitting the hardest in the West, the South, and rapidly growing urban suburbs where population explosions have completely outpaced affordable housing development. Finally, there is the argument that the free market will fix itself. However, the lack of affordable housing is deeply influenced by political decisions. Restrictive zoning laws and lack of tax credits artificially choke the housing supply. Legislative intervention is mathematically necessary. We need to expand the low-income housing tax credit, reform restrictive zoning regulations, and increase federal investments in affordable housing. By cutting the red tape that prevents multifamily homes from being built in growing suburbs, we can drastically increase supply and lower costs. You must vote for your local representatives who prioritize zoning reforms. Furthermore, when affordable housing developments are proposed in your neighborhoods, show up to the town halls and vocally support them, rather than blocking them. So, in conclusion, today we looked at the overwhelming data showing the housing costs are mathematically crushing American families. We saw the devastating health impacts in our communities and broke down why legislative reforms is the only logical solution. As I stated in the beginning, this crisis is devastating American families, and we must actively advocate for legislative zoning reforms to correct it. I urge you to vote for local zoning reforms and actively support affordable housing initiatives. We cannot allow for the 3.5 million American households to continue drowning. Housing is a fundamental human need, and it is time we build a society that reflects that reality. Thank you.